The Triforce of Wisdom, Link. The evil wizard Ganon has the Triforce of Power. Whoever gets both Triforces will rule this land forever. You must help me, Link.
Hey, for you, Zelda, anything.
Hero.
Hey! Excuse me, princess.
I am a firm believer that there haven't been enough video game-based cartoons, especially those starring Nintendo characters. In 1989, we were in the height of Super Mario Bros. And Captain N the Game Master, but it is easy to think that Link and Zelda were lost in the shuffle, especially hearing how many feel about the offering we received. The Legend of Zelda only aired on Fridays during the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. It contained a small order of 13 episodes, debuting each adventure once a week from September to December of '89. Alongside live-action sections from Mario and Luigi, these special cartoon segments were only 14 to 16 minutes long. The show took most of its inspiration from the original Legend of Zelda game on the Nintendo Entertainment System, while borrowing some enemies and designs from Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, though the DVD claims the show was primarily based off of the second game. The cartoon series didn't have a lot to work off of in how much of the world and characters were supposed to look or act outside of basic character traits. There are some rumors that parts of the artistic direction was taken from comics, art, and books about the characters that were in production at the time, but release dates of these materials leave these speculations potentially unfounded. The Legend of Zelda was adapted to television by Bob Forward, who made quite a name for himself as a writer for shows like She-Ra, Beast Wars Transformers, Captain Planet and the Planeteers, X-Men Evolution, and Biker Mice from Mars, just to name a few. More importantly, to our current discussion, Forward was credited as a writer on every episode of the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. Audiences were treated to full, colorful animation with simple but faithful designs depending on the viewer's preference. Not only did the characters look good, but the backgrounds had a few instances of blending hues, expertly creating several moments of truly eye-catching scenery. This sometimes broke consistency, but made some of the Hylian environments feel more like the fantastical world it should be. The illustrations on the DVD boxes and menus, however, always seemed off to me, and I have no clue why they were chosen. The show uses remixed versions of the game music on many occasions, and incorporates it well. Sound effects from the game are also heavily planted throughout, inserting an additional layer to the overall audio flow. Some thought and fun was put into this aspect, and we even got a fun moment where Link whistles the Mario Bros. Theme at the beginning of the Doppelganger episode. The intro was upbeat and would often get stuck in my head. The added bonus was that it retained the Super Mario Bros. Intro as well, which is an all-time favorite.
Do the Mario! Swing your arms from side to side. Come on, it's time to go! Do the Mario! Take one step, and then again, let's do the Mario! All together now! You got it!
The opening for Legend of Zelda is well done. It immediately establishes a different and fantastical world, while the narration from the princess sets the stakes for control of Hyrule. New viewers are immediately informed about everything they need to know. Link, Zelda, Ganon, as well as the Triforce of Wisdom and Triforce of Power. Everything is explained briefly and is easy to follow. Since the show smartly foregoes a traditional origin story, this intro tells everything one would need to know to get this week's adventure, no matter how much they'd seen beforehand. The intro was also the initial indication of the tone the show was going for: action-adventure, chemistry between the two main characters, and as the DVD box says, a dash of humor.
Doesn't Ganon ever quit? Tell Ganon that next time I'll stick his head into the pile.
That's the strongest dash of anything I've seen since Grandma Mario's Salt and Boca.
The humor in the show is entertaining. Not great by any means, but serviceable and shines at a couple of points. It was meant for younger audiences, and wanted to focus on giving Link a level of wit and sarcasm that didn't attempt any subtlety in the humor. His most renowned and repetitive line,
Excuse me, Princess,
is said in every episode, and is meant to imitate Steve Martin. It's repetitive to give him a signature line, annoying but catchy, a phrase that describes the show as a whole for some. Many may look at the cast of characters for this Legend of Zelda cartoon and think they act different from what might be expected when thinking about the games. Keeping in mind what the showrunners had to work with at the time, Forward had to make some tough decisions, and help the show blaze its own path with this world. The characters are the show's strongest element, and each was given a lot of strong personality traits to work with.
Link, get ready!
Ha! Not bad, eh?
What are you doing here?
Nothing much. Just heroically saving your life.
Link is an adventurer, yearning for the life of travel, sleeping in the mud and roughing it off the land, fighting new and interesting monsters. But he has taken on the task of protecting the king, the Triforce of Wisdom, and Princess Zelda. It can be a tedious task for someone who wants to be out in the world exploring, but Link sticks around in an attempt to gain Zelda's affections. The DVD box says that stealing a kiss from Zelda is one of his primary goals. Link is a cocky bastard who likes to show off, like Nintendo's version of Han Solo. He's quite creative with his items and the environment, flexing his skills when possible, and showing how easy things were for him. He literally shoots a moblin over his shoulder without looking and banks ridiculous shots multiple times, making things more of a challenge for himself. One of the best examples of this is when he makes a diving board out of the materials at hand in Episode 5 to try and save the king.
Ganon's after Daddy!
Stand aside, Princess.
Link's bravado can be fun at times, but is often over the top, like yelling "party time" before jumping into battle.
Party time!
He has very little chill, often itching to go out on an adventure or trying some scheme to get out of work or blackmail kisses from Zelda. Link is pretty horny in this cartoon, and I don't just say that because we see him in his boxers.
Hey, hold it! We're not evil. We won't hurt you.
She doesn't speak our language.
Oh, I'm sure she and I can communicate somehow.
Back off.
He even falls for a trick to give up his sword upon being told how the new one would make him irresistible to women in Episode 9.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a pretty good sword.
Yes, but this sword is much better. For instance, it makes whoever carries it irresistible to ladies, if you know what I mean.
Even princesses?
Especially princesses.
Help me!
It's a deal. Oh, boy!
Link comes across as a bit of a medieval fantasy frat boy who dances on the line of indecency, but never crosses it, even if many of his actions leave him looking less than chivalrous.
Beautiful girls in trouble are what he lives for.
Zelda has moments where she seems to be interested in Link also, and might even want to kiss him, but his quirks make it hard to like him for too long. Zelda's evil doppelganger kisses him immediately, so he realizes something is wrong, knowing his princess wouldn't react that way to him right away.
Are you gonna talk or smooch?
Each of these moments can be fun, but will feel repetitive. When he does finally earn a kiss or manages to be less annoying for a bit, something always interrupts the kiss.
Again, kiss me.
I was just going to.
This always happens!
Seeing Link's frustration is some of the better comedy shown here.
Oh. Okay, so there's one good reason. Looking good, princess, especially from this angle.
I do enjoy the attire and look they gave the Princess of Hyrule in this. Her outfit is nice and attractive, but looks practical. Princess Zelda isn't just a pretty face or spoiled royalty though. In many ways, she has taken all the responsibilities of Hyrule on her shoulders and makes sure that Link and the others have guidance when dealing with the issues at hand. She almost has to with such a useless father sitting on the throne as king. King Harkinian can't defend himself, getting kidnapped once or twice. He seems aloof, even oblivious at times, unable to truly help our protagonists, even with basic information. Zelda's father often forgets Link's name, even though he has saved the castle multiple times.
Hey, what are you up to, Link?
I was, just gonna swing in through your daughter's window and try to get her to kiss me.
Not a chance.
No?
No. You'll need to take flowers. Then you might succeed, yes.
But he does one-up his daughter and kisses Link on the cheek in episode 6.
Eh? Oh, well, I suppose, if you insist.
Hey! That was not exactly what I had in mind.
Zelda picks up the slack, though while still being respectful of her father. The princess is no pushover, often being shown as a more formidable fighter than in the games at that time, absolutely slaying monsters with her bow and displaying some magical prowess. Though she admits that the kingdom needs Link, Zelda doesn't take a shit. She slaps Link after he sees her without a robe on and whistles. Zelda even turns the table on him in episode 2, Cold Spells, when he is trapped, teasing that she guesses she needs to get him loose, showing off their type of playful banter.
Don't worry, I'll handle this.
Dum-de-dum. I suppose I'd better get you loose. I guess.
Hurry up, I'm getting squashed!
No matter how she acts towards him though, Zelda shows that she can hold a grudge, and sees Link as hers to a small degree. We see this explicitly when Zelda destroys her doppelganger after the mirror image kisses Link in front of her. Princess Zelda is courageous and does what needs to be done, whether that means boring duties of the court or putting herself in danger to ensure evil doesn't win. She cares a lot about her subjects and rescues who she can when it is needed. Zelda manages to even break one of the normal tropes and rescues the damsel in distress herself.
This is all wrong. Beautiful maidens are supposed to be rescued by handsome heroes, not other beautiful maidens.
My hero.
There, Your Highness. Link will save us.
He may not have a chance. Once Ganon discovers the, Triforce isn't here, he'll be mad.
Sprite represents the fairies from the early Zelda games. Another character to show off the magic in Hyrule, she is a princess in her own right, as her father is King Oberon of the fairies. Sprite has no obligation to help the heroes. She wants to be there to do something good, but may also have a small crush on Link. In fact, Sprite is quite the cockblocker. She is often the reason many of the attempted kisses between Link and Zelda are interrupted. Compared to Zelda, Link is often bashful around Sprite, not seeing her as a potential love interest and using her as a consult if anything.
You're a girl, Sprite. How can I get Zelda to pay more attention to me?
Who cares? She's a snot. You should stick with me.
Sprite, you're only 3 inches high.
What? You don't like short girls?
In episode 3, The White Knight, Link is taking a bath and sinks back under the water to hide himself upon realizing Sprite can see him. This is in contrast to her affections being fulfilled in episodes like Kiss and Tell, where her kiss is what turns Link back into his human form, but he never fully reciprocates.
Oh, Link, you poor thing. You've had such a hard day.
Ha! I'm me again! The Wall Witch told me I had to be kissed by a princess to get cured. But Sprite's kiss didn't.
Naturally. My father was the king of the fairies, you know. That makes me a princess.
Well, believe me, I'm glad I'm not a frog anymore.
I'm glad too. And thanks for rescuing me. You still want a kiss?
You bet! Oh boy!
The love triangle is up front and present, but it doesn't take up too much of the running time. In the White Knight episode, we are shown a different and more blatant love triangle, with the tables being turned on Link as Prince Facade enters the picture. Also, I have to admit to putting too many precious seconds into figuring out how a Sprite and Link relationship would work. Sprite is a useful ally with her own set of passions and problems. Several will try to compare her to Navi. Fans see her as the most iconic fairy in the franchise. But Sprite predates her by a few years and is just a bit less annoying.
Blast! You idiots bungled it again!
Sorry, Ganon.
You'll be sorrier.
Every hero needs an antagonist. The name Ganon is synonymous with evil in Hyrule, but this evil wizard never felt quite fleshed out in the early days. Nintendo themselves didn't put much effort into his backstory until Link to the Past arrived. With this version of the character though, no one can say he wasn't given some personality quirks. Ganon's pig-like features make him visually cool, perhaps even threatening in that environment. His voice is high-pitched most of the time, going to what I would almost call a squeal, and then incredibly deep when his speech requires him to be menacing. It's a trait of his I definitely like.
I sent my demands to the castle nearly an hour ago, Harkinian. You'd better hope your daughter responds soon, or...
He is immensely powerful. While there seem to be rules and limitations on this magic, he enjoys showing it off. Ganon is often seen needlessly teleporting around his lair like it helps him think. Walking is beneath him, as he will often ride a large beast or have his skeletons carrying him. Flaunt it if you got it, I suppose. Ganon cares nothing for his subordinates, often killing his own troops to make opportunities for Link to be hurt, like in Episode 5, Sing for the Unicorn.
Phew! Saved!
That's what you think.
Being the bad guy in a cartoon primarily aimed at younger children means he's often defeated, made to look foolish, and the butt of many jokes. Ganon does manage to do that himself well enough, like when we see the Fiend shadowboxing, showing the Stalfos how to fight at the end of Episode 1 The Ringer. The show makes him out to be less effective, never quite fully getting one over on Link and Zelda. He has tried everything from doppelgangers, giant magnets, and even forcing the princess to marry him for power. That whole thing was still only a little bit creepier than Link somehow. Ganon is prideful, calculating, always looking for weaknesses in others to exploit, but he is also easily irritated. These traits make him just enough of a threat while being easy to thwart. He doesn't like the world above, wanting to conquer and corrupt it, not understanding love or other such traits. He hates them.
Zelda in love with Link? Oh, how disgusting!
Ganon will try anything to get what he wants. He deserved to win at least once.
I just fixed that.
Better take cover, Doof. Moblins are my business.
Get him! Get him!
For as much credit as I give the characters and some ideas the show puts forward, I have to admit that the writing isn't great in a lot of places. This is mostly because they stayed within their comfortable box for those 13 episodes, never venturing outside of the baseline they established, and resetting to the status quo at the end of each episode. This also means that much of the jokes, action, and story angles are recycled. The dialogue isn't catchy without the personality quirks of the characters playing off of each other, but the writers try to give everyone something to do. Even the Triforce of Wisdom has several lines across the season.
Link's corner is disgusting.
Orderly ways do not make one brave, and neatness does not a kingdom save.
But still, it offends my royal nose when I must smell these stinky clothes. Let's get some air in here.
I truly believe that had the show been given a season 2, we would have seen this formula evolve, and Link and Zelda's adventures would have expanded greatly, journeying to different places, facing new enemies, and perhaps even experimenting with more continuity in their storylines. Ending that second season with a 4-part episode where we see Ganon actually get a hold of both Triforces would have been something for sure. The show also had to play within the lines of using a licensed property and being a children's cartoon as well. The creators came up with a non-violent way for Link and company to fight the monsters without ever having to cut, stab, or impale with their weapons, much like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Ganon and his monsters didn't die, but were de-energized, and then sent back to a giant magical container bluntly called the Evil Jar, a source of power where the creatures waited until they were called upon by their master. This approach allowed the creators to tie combat back into the game still. Link uses a lot of weapons of opportunity, random nearby items, or even lets the monsters attack each other. His main attack, though, is a bolt of energy fired from his sword, similar to the discharge of energy from Zelda's bow. There is never a mention that he has to be at full health to perform this attack, but it allowed for him to look ruthless, zapping moblins and Octoroks constantly, with each creature requiring a certain number of hits to de-energize them.
One more in your history, Ganon.
Oh, that's a zap you won't make, Link.
Guess they made up for the lack of violence with how horny Link was. I honestly love how much the show attempts to adopt aspects that make it feel more like a video game. From the first episode, we are shown how Link can carry large items when we see they shrink down for his pouches, like a bag of holding. Link also finds several items from the games and even explains their mechanics, like in episode 6 where he finds a bracelet and says it gives him 1 minute of extra strength. Rupees make an appearance but are referred to as rubies instead. The Triforce of Wisdom is also broken into multiple pieces in episode 8, Underworld Connections, similar to the games. Attempts like this, as well as incorporating many of the monsters and magical items from the games, was a nice touch of fanfare that felt like it belonged. Legend of Zelda did have some typical production problems as well. Some of the cliché animation errors. Early on, a couple of characters speak, but their mouths don't move because they weren't drawn to. Syncing mishaps occur a few times, and Zelda is especially guilty of wearing multiple outfits in the same scene. A few of the magical effects didn't quite look like they were done precisely, but those might be harder to spot. One thing I wouldn't even thought about was that Link is right-handed in the cartoon, but apparently wields his blade as a lefty in most of the games. My DVD set of the complete series came with several bonus features like a trivia game, card matching, and select live-action sequences from the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. I love seeing those again. The DVDs also have a downloadable character sketch gallery, and even in that material there is a mistake where they spelled Sprite's name wrong. I mentioned the DVD art earlier, just not looking quite comparable to what we see in the cartoon. Okay, in my opinion, it just looks bad and off-putting. I like the show a lot, in case that wasn't clear, but it isn't perfect by far, and I understand the problems most have with it. The Legend of Zelda cartoon gets too much hate in my opinion though, as so many reviews like to bash the series based off of surface impressions alone, or trying to compare it to expectations that don't fit the environment 1989 presented. It's more notable as a meme now for most, which is a shame. The greatest crime here is that The Legend of Zelda wasn't given more chance to spread its wings. The characters did go on to appear in other shows, like Captain N the Game Master and Super Mario Bros. 3, with the same voice actors, where the voice actress of Sprite also brought Cutie Pie Koopa to life as well. But after that, sadly, Link and Zelda have not returned to an animated series like this, even if there is speculation about it happening constantly. With Nintendo venturing back into film and television again as of late, fans are holding on to hope that this franchise will find its voice once again as a new animated series. Personally, I wouldn't mind if they took some inspiration from one of my favorite video game cartoons.